Welcome back to the Momo Method, where we turn self-doubt into self-belief. Today I'm super excited to introduce you to someone who truly embodies what it means to be a leader in today's world. Last time we explored the topics of self-awareness, self-regulation, and motivation in social and emotional intelligence. Today we're building on that foundation. Have you ever heard of relationship intelligence? It takes those SEI skills and applies them into how we connect with people around us. Well, get ready to dive deep because I got the perfect guest to break it all down. This is Cara-Lyn Giovanniello. I hope I pronounced your last name right, Cara-Lyn.
You're almost Italian. I can hear it and see it.
Thank you so much. I had the pleasure of working with Cara-Lyn back where we both worked at Square, or now known as Block. Let me tell you, she is a force. Cara-Lyn isn't your typical leadership coach. She brings incredible energy and truly a unique perspective to everything does. She calls herself an offsite magician, and it is the perfect description. She has this amazing ability to design these immersive experiences that really gets people thinking and connecting on a deeper level. And what really cool is she's been ahead of the curve, focusing on building emotional, relational, and strategic intelligence, the core of what we now call as relationship intelligence, long before it became a buzzword. So, for those who haven't had a chance to experience your magic firsthand, what's the secret sauce? Like, what's so special about this relationship intelligence thing? How can it help us unlock our potential, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Rikaz. It's so nice to see you again. And hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am super excited to be talking about my favorite topic, which is actually relationship intelligence. It's in the work that I do in learning and development, leadership development, and in coaching. And the thing that I would say is so special about RQ and how it can help unlock potential, both personally and professionally, is that it acknowledges that success, whether it comes in your personal life, whether it comes in your career, but it is built on the quality of our relationships. So RQ goes beyond the traditional metrics like IQ or technical skills, and it really focuses on how we connect with people, how we collaborate with those people, and how we can communicate. And so when we're intentionally developing RQ, what we're doing is we're unlocking potential by fostering key frameworks and sort of belief systems around trust, communication, and creating a culture where people really feel valued and empowered. Those are two big words that everyone's looking. How do I provide value? How do I provide empowerment? Really doubling down on what relationship intelligence is and how it works. It's going to translate, especially in business, to having stronger teams, to creating much better and much stronger decision making, and greater innovation. I love risk taking. I tell all my teams that I work with, I want you to fail and fail hard every day. When they say, what are you talking about? I say, in my world, fail means frequent adventures in learning. So I want you to fail every day as hard as possible because the learning that we have as a group, what's working for us and what's not working for us, it allows that iterative process so that we can create a hypothesis, we can experiment, we can see what that data is, and we can create a process that's going to allow us to communicate faster, create impact faster. And that's what really companies are looking for. But also that's what you're looking for in your personal relationships, the depth of knowing deeply another person, which starts with deeply knowing yourself. So we don't want to disclude how important EQ is. It's that first part. And I'm so glad that you have talked about that already, because they really are tied together. And we want people to know, once you know about yourself, how do you work that into really knowing and working with people best?
That's amazing. I love unlocking potential. I think we all have like So much of potential where we do not tap into it. And then the focus of my podcast is to help people discover those potential and unlock in. And relationship potential, I think it takes us to the next level for sure. So, question to you, like, what initially sparked your interest in relationship intelligence or RQ, and how has your understanding of it evolved over time?
Wow, it's a good question. I sort of started the idea of relationship intelligence, understanding what my strengths were. Again, when I think about EQ and what really makes me tick and boom, which is something that we use all the time in coaching, I understood that creating connection with people and then getting people to be empowered to do something, whether that was on a one on one basis for themselves or with a team, was really where I created impact. So I started to basically get certified. There was only a couple of groups out there that had anything to do with RQ. And I said, look, you have an assessment. What's the data that comes from this assessment? How are we supposed to be applying it to our work? And so what I understood is that RQ is realizing how much of success in life isn't just about who you know, but about what you know about these people and how you can get them motivated to work in the same direction that you are doing. So my background is in learning and development. I've been working in learning and development for about 20 years, 20 plus years. And I've really been focused on leadership development in that time. And I love working with leaders. And I do that in my coaching practice. I do that in my offsite work with, teams of teams. And I also do that creating learning programming around how to democratize leadership. How do we embrace the inner leader in all of us, whether that's leading people, leading ourselves, leading projects. And one of the things that I understood is that impactful leaders aren't necessarily the smartest people in the room, but they are absolutely the ones who can inspire, they can listen, and they can build trust. And over time, I see RQ as the skill that we can all develop. Every single person, if they want to start with themselves, they want to do that hard work of understanding what is their emotional quotient. What happens is that they're allowed to open that space for other people to come and bring that same value to it. And so then we have relationship. We start at a one-on-one level. Once you figure out how to do that repeatedly on a one-on-one level, then you get to say, how do I do that with groups of people? And so my understanding really shifted from thinking about it as an innate talent to recognizing it as a set of practices that anyone can learn and anyone can apply to unlock their potential and lead a more fulfilling life, to have a more progressive and satisfying career, to basically feel good about who they are and how they are showing up in the world.
I mean, that's a great way to say feel good about who they are and how they show up to the world.
Yep.
Super duper important. So you mentioned that RQ involves emotional, relational, and strategic intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I know the concept of RQ is a new concept for a lot of people. Can you break down each of these components and explain how they work together?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking the question. I sort of see this in kind of like a linear pathway, which starts with emotional intelligence. I have worked from CEOs all the way down to, emerging leaders in terms of leadership development. And regardless of their level, I will always start out with the component of who are you being? Do you know what that means? Do you know how that shows up? So EQ really is about the understanding and managing of your own emotions while being attuned to other people's feelings. And I believe it is the foundation for empathy, self-awareness, and effective communication, but you have to start that process with yourself. So if you have a coach, if you have a therapist, if you have a counselor, any of these mechanisms, if you journal for really trying to take something from the subjective, which is inside of yourself, make it objective by putting it outside of yourself, and then really starting to pick it apart a little bit to understand how it works and where there is fails. And of course, how can you improve on those fails to make you feel confident in your own self? Once that process is routine, once it's become a ritual, you do it in everything that you do. What you then move is into that relational intelligence, which is focusing on how we connect with others. And you're building trust and you're nurturing relationships and you're navigating conflicts effectively. I love conflict. I do not think conflict is a negative thing. I think we have to have tension in order for something to grow, for innovation to exist. And so it's really about creating meaningful and productive interactions But you can't do that unless you understand how to hold space for another person to show up authentically and uniquely, because again, no matter how similar you are or dissimilar you are people and you're people working together. And so figuring out how to understand, influence, motivate one person leads to how do you do that with a group of people? Now, I want you to imagine we've kind of ticked over one from emotional intelligence over to relationship intelligence. Then I want you to see this branch, it kind of comes out of all of these different ways of creating strategic intelligence. And I've sort of created, maybe I should TM this in my life, but strategic intelligence is really the ability to apply relational and emotional intelligence in a way that's going to align with larger goals. So it's basically having a group of people moving in the same direction. And you can imagine the power of one person moving in a direction very confidently, very securely, how that increases exponentially when you have a group of people that are aligned and that are using their unique characteristics and their strengths all to achieve one goal. So this is really how you convince people to think long term. And if you make objectives and success around objectives a relationship-driven decision, that's going to lead to greater success that we're constantly trying to get companies to be aware. If you want to really not only meet the bottom line, but exceed past it, you have to figure out how to empower your people to work towards the same goal and move that energy. And there's a lot of momentum there. So together, these components really create a holistic approach to managing relationships. So you've got that self-awareness. The RQ is going to help you to connect with other people. And the SQ really ensures that those connections lead to a meaningful outcome. There is no business in the world that isn't going to say, I want bigger impact. I want a better outcome. So if you can understand these three components and get them to work together really fluidly, really seamlessly, now you're onto something. But again, it starts with people, and that people really starts with you as person.
Yeah, I think change begins with us, and wanting to move forward begins with us. So understanding us and then able to use those. I think on one of your LinkedIn posts, we were communicating back and forth around it about understanding our inner saboteurs and not
Oh,
just
yeah.
really ignoring those inner saboteurs, but listening to what it says and learning from that and moving forward. One of the questions when talking about relationship intelligence that comes in your experience, what are some common misconceptions people have about relationship intelligence?
That's a great question because I think because this is such a new topic and people are really trying to understand what it means and how they can apply it, there are a lot of misconceptions. One that I think is really common, and I hear this all the time, especially from female leaders, is that RQ is about being nice. It's about overly agreeable. I am going to make this easy for you to be successful, and I'm going to stand and support you. And what can I do to help you? And I often tell leaders that is not the route that you want to go. Because in reality, RQ is about being authentic. It is about being crystal clear and very intentional in your interactions. And sometimes, oftentimes, that's going to mean having really tough but respectful conversations. I think that feedback, being able to provide feedback both in the praise component and in the area of constructive feedback, it's incredibly important. Being able to have really valuable retros, really making sure that you're inspiring the team to be looking at the full scope of something. In order to do that, you have to feel very comfortable to say, let's talk about the hard things. I do this a lot in my practice, whether I'm in a room with people or on a virtual call, say, wait, I got a timeout. We got to call attention to the elephant in the room. And I will immediately say the thing that I think and see, because I understand that that's going to build trust when people see that I'm not trying to dart behind something or hide behind something. And I'm encouraging leaders to do the same thing. Call out when something is working, call out when something isn't working, but make that a routine in your practice of leadership in order for people to feel that that sincerity is actually locked in. Another misconception is that it's something only leaders or extroverts need. So the truth is that RQ is going to benefit everyone, regardless of the role or the personality type that you have, because at the end of the day, relationships are universal. We are in relationships every day, all day, starting with ourselves, being in a relationship with ourselves, really enjoying ourselves, being able to argue with ourselves, being able to motivate ourselves. That is the very first relationship we have to be in. Well, we're in relationships with members of our family. We're in relationships with our friends. We are in relationship with our milkman, our postman, our neighbors. I mean, you name it. At some point in the day, you're probably going to have an interaction with another human being. This is where RQ plays to being successful there. And so really enabling yourself to want to learn about another person, to be open to them having the same or different opinions to you, and just understanding that your ability to create influence in the world is simply by holding space for being authentic and individual. It's a great starting point. I think that people often think RQ is sort of innate quality, that you either have it or you don't, but I will say it's actually a skill set that can be learned. And once learned, practice, and once practiced, refined to make it into a routine, to make it into a ritual. So for example, one of the basic things that we talk to leaders about, which sounds so easy and so obvious, but we don't do it. Say hi to people when you come into the office. When you start your workday, check in with everybody. Hey, everybody, how are you? I'm going to be offline for a couple of meetings from this time. If you need me for anything, or if something needs to be brought to my attention, feel free to drop me a Slack. Feel free to drop me an email. Pop by my office. Hey, I just want to call attention to the fact our team had a great success last week. I'm really proud to be leading this team. This is the impact of what happened. Thank you all so much for your hard work. Hey, team, I noticed there were some things last week that weren't really serving us. I want to call attention to them because I would like by the end of this week for everyone to give me one suggestion or solution that they think could help us move past this the next time it comes up. Just having that really quick moment of interaction to say, I see you, I acknowledge you. This is a yes and quality that we learned in improv, that we take in coaching, that says, I'm acknowledging something and here's how I want to solve it. Here's how I want to address it. Here's how I want to bring attention to it. That's really what relationship intelligence is. And the more that you do it, the more that people trust you to really bring out all facets of a situation. And I think that we have to understand that everything can be learned if you are open to wanting to develop, to grow. And obviously that's my practice space here. And sometimes you have to work really hard to motivate people. They just don't want to do that, or they think they've already got it. Everybody has space to learn. Doesn't matter if you are the top CEO in the world, or again, if you're the first time that you're coming sort of into, the workplace, or just even your social situation. You want to be open to how you can develop and grow to make your life feel very fulfilling and worthwhile.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it right over there, like being intentional when we communication, and then totally agree about the misconception where people think relationship intelligence is basically agreeing to everything that is being said, and that fear of confronting others and you're trying not to be authentic, and you're doing a disservice to yourself, right, by not being authentic. I'm sure we've all been there, right? They're stuck in a tricky situation, maybe at work or in our personal lives, where we aren't really sure how to navigate those relationships. Maybe you really want to have that tough conversation with your boss, or maybe with your spouse, but you're not sure how to move through that. And Cara-Lyn, I mean, you've been pioneering this around it. Do you mind sharing a story where someone used RQ to successfully get through a tough spot?
Yeah, that's a great question. Often this is the story that I will tell when I'm giving a keynote, because for me, it's just such a pivotal moment in my career. But one of my first L&D jobs is I was tasked with working with an SLT at a really resource-strapped organization. The SLT was about 16 people. It was a massive organization that was millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in deficit. So they were having to lay off 7% of their workforce fairly consistently. That was either quarterly or at least every half year they were having to lay off 7%. So when I started this role, I was the only L&D person that was working on the team. And my job was to really spend a few weeks sitting in on their team meetings and trying to hear for themes and really pull from their problems, their pain points, something that I felt like I could create that would make a solution for them. Well, it was a very cold awakening, is one of my first times of being in an SLT. They fought every single time. They had an hour meeting every single week, and It was who could talk louder than everybody else and express their frustration. They didn't have enough resources. They weren't going to work with IT. They weren't going to work with HR. I mean, I had never seen anything like it. So I was a little bit shell shocked. And then as time went on, what I began to realize is that they were not working with each other at all. There was no way for them to create bridges, which again was kind of wasting time, but was wasting resources. And it was really depleting morale throughout their whole teams. So probably 6 weeks in, they were having a meeting, and, just a miracle, really. Everybody stopped talking at the same time. There was this silence. And I am not kidding, Rikaz. My mouth just dropped open. And I started to just sort of barf out material, barf out things that I heard. And first thing I said is I was like, look, you guys, you're so close to solutions. Challenge I'm hearing is that we're not giving each other enough time and not supporting each other in the challenges that we have, because there are a few themes that I think we could really make traction on. Nobody talked. So I was like, wow, they're really interested in what I have to say. I went to the whiteboard. I started writing on the whiteboard and drawing charts and really laying out this plan that was formulating basically in the moment. And I probably had the floor for maybe 6 minutes, less than 10, but certainly I used it talking West Wing style fast to really try to get some points across while I was the only person that had the floor. When I finished, I sort of said, does anybody have any questions? Nobody said anything to me. Everyone also looked shocked that I had even spoken. And my boss, who was in the room, said, Cara-Lyn, thank you so much for that contribution. You can leave now. So I thought, oh man, this is it. This is absolutely, my last day getting to join this team. He came to me about an hour later and he sat down and he said to me, have you ever thought about being a coach? And I thought about it for probably 30 seconds and I answered as earnestly and as honestly as I could, which was to say, I'm pretty good at sports, but I don't think I could teach anybody to do a sport. And of course, he laughed directly in my face and was like, that's absolutely not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a business coach, which I never heard of at the time. This is about, 12, 15 years ago. And I asked him what it was. And he said to me, a coach is a person who can really listen to people and hold space for them and can make solutions and suggestions that don't put people in defense and really figure out how to inspire and motivate people to work together. He then said, I had this as an innate skill, but that I needed to refine it and that he was going to put me into a coach development program. From that point on, every single class that I took in the coach program, I brought back into my SLT meetings. And I figured out ways that we could have really productive conversations by first and foremost, just allowing people to have the space to say their full thought. Everybody would be talking over another person. People weren't even able to feel that they could be acknowledged, that they would have the room and the space to explain the problem, let alone figure out how to work with another person in order to make a possible solution. So by building trust, by giving people the floor and giving them the ways of working techniques of what do they need in order to be successful and what don't they need in order to make sure that they don't fail, that we were improving their communication. And they really did move in a course of, I would say 3 months, a quarter, from adversaries, deep adversaries to allies. And the team's performance improved dramatically. Their teams of teams performance improved dramatically. We were able to really sort of stop the flow of folks leaving the organization, folks talking badly about the organization, folks really not showing up to do their jobs. And we basically just taught them some very basic RQ techniques around how to hold space, how to articulate. It's called level 2 listening. I heard you say this, is that right? So that they could really understand the root problems that each member of the SLT were having. It was fascinating to watch because I was learning it and then doing it at the same time. But you could not get a better, thrown in the deep end than to sit there and to try and work with a team that just had so much bad blood between them. And in the end, we left an organization that was in the process of moving towards thriving. I don't want to say it was thriving. It was a really challenging situation, but we started the process to creating pathways to thriving and succeeding. And it was really something special for me in my development and my experience to be able to be a part of that. And I have used that repeatedly in any organization that I've come in to simply say, let's start with the basics of how we can understand each other, how we can listen to each other, how we can hold space for each other before we move into solution finding. And that was my biggest takeaway from how powerful RQ is. And I've just learned and refined that my process for myself, which is just means we come in and we do that really quickly with organizations now.
Wow, that's definitely a powerful story. I mean, getting thrown into a SLT meeting, not really knowing what's going on a tough situational challenge,
Yep.
and getting utilizing RQ to break through and creating that, you literally unlock their potential to
Yep.
move into a thriving organization. And it also help you to unlock a new potential for you to become a certified coach, actually. So that's amazing. Now, COVID literally changed all our landscapes, right? Like previously, you were physically in a meeting where you were able to observe these body languages, be able to read people's emotions and everything. Whereas now we are in a much more of a virtual world. So, how does RQ differ in a virtual world compared to that face-to-face interactions that you've had? Um, are there like any unique challenges or opportunities when it comes to building RQ online?
Yeah, that is a great question. It is something that a lot of organizations have really struggled with. And I think the reason for that is there was a lack of intentionality when folks went away from the in-person interactions to a virtual interaction, which is, hey, if they show up on screen, they must be here, they must be engaged. That's all the work I have to do. And what happened is that we stopped using our level 3 listening. So now we've talked about level 2, which is that articulation process of, I heard you say that, is that right? To really what they call global listening, which is to really look and examine the whole person, the whole situation. And people were sort of disregarding body language or other nonverbal cues. And it was easy for messages to be misinterpreted or for connections to feel really superficial. You know, you started to hear around that time that people were really feeling the disconnect to others. You know, I'm in meetings all day long, but I don't feel connected to my team. And that was simply because there was a challenge for us to now figure out how to create genuine human connection in a digital environment. And so there were a lot of places that we encouraged people, if they were going to use video calls instead of emails, but not even just doing that, have a virtual coffee chat, right? We're not talking about work. I just want to spend 15 minutes kind of learning about you. Practice active listening, which means that you would get on a call with one or more people and you would say, look, I'm not here to really give my opinion. I'm here to listen. I may ask some questions, but my goal is to just give you the space and the forum to do it and sort of just see how you present. I will say, as an advocate of the way that the world is moving and trying to, you know, be with the movement of the world, that there is a flip side to kind of the hardship that the virtual life has given us. And that is that there are a lot of unique opportunities that we want to kind of seize in a virtual environment because a lot of companies are moving to a hybrid system. And so we really want to encourage that you can hire the best talent when you have hybrid because that person may not live close to where your hub company is. And you would really want to have them on your team. So in order to do that, you're able to now use virtual to connect with people across the globe. How that really impacts what's happening now in business is that you are talking about inclusivity. You are now accessing diverse perspectives. You are now fostering this idea of bringing all the voices in the room, allowing space for people to share these really risk-taking, sort of wild, lid-off ideas that weren't always possible before. Especially if, you know, a group came, you know, I live in the Bay Area. The Bay Area has a particular vibe. You know, people try to show up in a particular way. They try to work in a particular way because that's how we've grown up. That's what we know. But you imagine that you have a team and you have someone on every continent that's really bringing their cultural growth, their institutional knowledge that is so different, so diverse to someone else on the team. You're offering a range of possibilities, a range of education that people normally wouldn't have access to. And if you have figured out how to really harness the power of RQ, say all of these different perspectives, we're going to figure out a way to use them as a means of momentum, then you are using this medium to the fullest extent, and your company, your team, your organization, your project will be incredibly successful, more so than other groups, because you have figured out that special sauce, which was really the question that you asked me at the beginning. What is the special sauce? It's a lot about inclusivity. It's a lot about holding space for others' opinions. It's a lot about just making sure that there is acknowledgement and room to share, and then figuring out how to say, look at all these ideas we now have. Which is the one that we think is going to get us to X fastest? And then let's break that down. And again, moving into that strategic intelligence. Okay, now what do we need to do to make this happen in the fastest way possible? The more data you have for that, the better it's going to be for your team, for your organization, and for your bottom line.
Yeah, data talks a lot of story, and once
Yes.
again, on that example, it's all about being intentional on your hiring, intentional on creating that. I know you mentioned space, but I like to add the additional word like a safe, psychological safe space where
Yes.
people feel I'm not going to be judged to share my culture, share my emotions, or share my personality, because oftentimes in a virtual world, when someone sees another person in a different landscape, they try to mirror them versus trying
Mm.
to show their original personality because they're afraid of being judged. So, intentional about creating that space could really unlock so much of potential. Um, Going on that same topic, this might probably be our last question. Um, for someone who might be struggling with building strong relationships, whether
Mm.
at their workspace or within their relationships, what's one practical tip that they can implement today to start improving their RQ?
Can I give two?
Oh, yeah. The
Okay.
more the
They're
merrier.
both they both tie to each other. So, it's not just like two crazy wild things. But I think two basic fundamental principles of really building RQ and building it very simply and very powerfully. It's curiosity and active listening. And the reason I use curiosity is curiosity, if you think about a child, when they have questions about things, they're not coming from a place of defensiveness. They're not coming a place of accusatory. What they're doing is they're generally curious to understand the full spectrum of whatever it is that, is on the table. And so if you're able to ask a really powerful question curiously, and then you can hold space for another person to go inside themselves curiously and answer that, you're going to get a depth of an answer that you normally wouldn't if you asked something that was just simply information gathering. Are you going to do this? Yes or no? When is it going to be done? This date. That's good information, but it's not the best information if you're really trying to build RQ, because you want to understand the ticks and booms of another person. You want to understand the ticks and booms of a project or a situation. So if you can really imbibe curiosity into the way that you interact with another person, they're going to feel that, and it's going to allow them to be curious with their own solution finding, which is going to really open the playing field for something that is, riskier, but potentially more successful. When we talk about active listening is honestly a gift. People do not listen to other people. And immediately what I mean is when you are trying to engage with another person and they're on their phone, or they're looking at you as sort of a blank look in their face, and they're having a conversation in their head. We all do it. I mean, there is no shaming. We do it. It's just something to remember that when we're doing it, we're disconnected with the other person. They can feel it, and that's not a good feeling to have. So you want to pull that connection back. You want to make sure that they feel that they are being listened to. Sometimes just holding space and simply saying, again, level 2 listening, I heard you say this, is that right? Sometimes asking an open-ended question. Remember, open-ended, what do they want to say? Don't lead them. Don't ask for a yes or no, which really puts that stop sign in having that beautiful dialogue and building that understanding. But you can ask an open-ended question very similar to like, how does that make you feel when something like that happens? Or what's been on your mind? Or what solution haven't we tried yet? So this not only shows that you care, that you're interested, you're following along in their story, but you're also trying to deepen your understanding of their perspective better. And again, people just want to feel acknowledged and seen. And if that can happen, they're going to really bloom under those two facets. So if you are trying to really build RQ, start with making people feel heard and valued. And honestly, I think curiosity is the first step to that, because it is so genuine. It is so peaceful. It is so playful. It is so kind. And I don't think anyone's going to be mad at those if it's in a personal relationship, if it's in a professional relationship. And I would like to encourage as many companies as possible to start that practice, and for that to even be in one of their values. A company value is curiosity. And when a client or a consumer asks, how does that play out in this? Then they get to say, we are a company of people that are making a product, and we are curious about how these people can make it better every single day. I think it's beautiful, and I'm here for it.
That is most definitely beautiful. And what a way for us to really end our show on a note, right? Talking about curiosity. I just want to give a huge, huge round of applause and thank you, Cara-Lyn, for being such a wonderful guest. And just a quick closing note, or actually a note before we really close is be curious, genuinely curious, be intentional about your curiosity, and actively listen, right? Listen to actually listen and not try to listen. And most of the time, I think I've caught myself doing this so many times when somebody's talking and saying something, I'll be like, oh, what should I be saying my solutions? Because sometimes people
That's
just
it.
want to be heard. Nothing. They don't want a solution. They don't want a response from you. They just want to be listened. So actively listening to them, those are great ways for us to help building that relationship intelligence RQ on our way. And thank you so much again for that great takeaway. So before we officially sign off, I just want to kind of give the mic back to you. Let's just assume this is a physical world. Here's the mic. Any final words of wisdom for our viewers or listeners today?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to look at this from a strategic approach for my company, which works with organizations in order to build the pyramid of EQ, RQ, and SQ, which is invest in your people. I can't tell you how many companies have unfortunately had to lay off their L&D teams that simply don't have any bandwidth to develop and grow their employees. And it is absolutely one of the worst things that you can do, even though it feels like a good cost saving feature. I would say if you can't afford an internal L&D team, the best thing that you can do is to hire an external L&D team, which is, myself and my organization, to come in and to really do support work to make sure that every member of your organization feels in some way that they are being looked at as an expectation to grow and develop, to bring new skills, to bring new attributes to the company. Because once people really feel that their company cares about them growing, their product, their ability to interact with whatever it is that they're working on is going to improve tenfold. And I think it's just incredibly important for companies to own that they might not have all the resources that they need to have an internal system. There are a lot of different companies out there, myself included, that will come in and that will allow you to create the impact that you're looking for. Don't give up on that growth and development for your employees. It's critical for the success of your organization, and it starts with the success of your people.
Wow, what a great message once again. I mean, to your fact, what has you said, like it's really sad when organizations think about cost cutting or like staff
Yeah,
reduction. One of the first thing that comes into mind is L&D, but L&D adds so much value to the employees, and in return, it goes into the organizations. I wish
yeah,
the senior
exactly.
leaders who make those decisions could step back and think to see like, is this the right move I should make? Sometimes, financially speaking, it might be, but ensuring that opportunity for continuous growth, continuous education is available, that's going to help employees feel empowered, employees valued, and they're going to give
Hmm.
not just their 100%, they're going to give their 110 or 120%, in turn, making your customers and your product and service the best out there. Well, Cara-Lyn, thank you so much again. Really, really appreciate your time
Thank
and
you, Rickaz.
them you shared with us. We got a lot more episodes coming your way soon, and I'm looking forward to bring some more amazing guests with insightful communications and conversations. So stay tuned. And in the meantime, remember to connect with those around you and keep building those strong relationships. Remember, continue to be curious, continue to listen, and look in to see how can we all get better. Together we go forward. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, adios from Momo. Have a great day, everybody.